kids are in one of them, and I forget, one of these might be one of the drawings. So they're left with about 900 passengers, most of whom are Jewish. I'm assuming they were German. There might have been some Austrian Jewish passengers on board. And they sailed for Havana, Cuba, with the hopes of escaping what looked like the black cloud over Nazi Germany and persecution of Jews. Hitler had already been in power for 6 years. The Cubans let 20 passengers into Havana. The ship then went by Miami. The United States refused entry to any, and it was up by Nova Scotia, and the Canadians also refused entry, and the ship went back to Antwerp, Belgium. The British let, I forget how many, it might have been 100 or more, passengers into Britain, all of whom survived World War II. And then of all the others, most of them ended up in France and Germany. And I have to write the Holocaust Museum in DC because I read that they were researching what happened, what was the fate of every passenger on board. This fellow was born in, I'm assuming 1920. He was 19 in 1939. And his name was Klaus Helmut Goldschmidt. I got a book from the library written by his uncle. He had a brother who had escaped to the United States with a German Jewish wife, and they're gone now, but the nephew is probably around my age and retired classical music, I don't know, DJ or whatever, and that's where I learned about him. So his name was Klaus Helmut Goldschmidt, and he was murdered at Auschwitz, I think in 1942. Let's go look at the drawings. And for me, in terms of all the persecution, all the Islamophobia, xenophobia, refugees from, especially like from sub-Saharan Africa, from war-torn Syria and other countries, yeah, the response of so many countries, some of them is very good and others is just horrific, like in the United States. So I did the two drawings in mind, thinking about how would I want to talk about war and conflict and people being hateful towards other people and people needing to leave their homes and go to other places, other countries, with teaching young children in mind. I've only showed these, I showed them once in a PowerPoint last year with English Jewish pupils, ages 4 to 13 at the Nottingham Liberal Synagogue in England. And so it was good for me to like ask questions like, why do you think, I even started with how many sea monsters do you find here? There's actually quite a few. But why do you think I did sea monsters? And answers from kids are really always fascinating to me. Kids don't have a lot of the, I don't know, they're much freer about answering, and they're also much freer about asking questions than, I mean, by the time you're a teenager, you get, I don't know, more circumscribed and having to analyze and come out with the whatever. So who's our youngest person in the audience here? Hey, Emilio. What do you think?
Okay, so I think that about the sea monsters.
Sure.
So
Yeah,
I
that's
think
great.
that it's like they represent like the world, and the people who are in the boats and like the passengers of the boats are like they're like the refugees, and then the sea monsters is the world, like rejecting them.
Rejecting them.
And bashing them and like
Bashing them?
Yeah, well, bashing them isn't like, you know, like talking poorly about them. Yeah, just making the world hell for them.
Say it again.
Making the world hell for them.
Making a little hell for them. All very good responses. Thanks. How about one of the adults? Anyone?
Well, they would seem to be very voracious. Their mouths are open, their teeth look very carnivorous and threatening.
You think so?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah?
I wouldn't want to run into that character if I was out swimming on the beach.
Really?
So, I mean, there's they look threatening, and devouring, mouths open.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I was actually trying to, the sea monsters you'll see in two of the mosaic drawing combos. Also, I've been trying to think of who's the late author of Where the Wild Things Are. I just don't blank on his name.
Maurice Sendak.
Maurice Sendak, who actually was Jewish himself. I forget where he was from. And I always liked the fact that he did like monsters that like little children could look at and not feel threatened by, or as if they're going to burst into tears or something. So evidently, maybe my teeth are a little more scarier than I was willing to admit. Thanks. How many sea monsters do we see here?
2, 3.
3?
I see 4.
1, 2.
3, the big, and isn't that that's
see that one there?
a large sea
And there's
monster.
another one here.
Well, then there's 5, the great devourer over there.
That's 5. 1, 2, 3, 4. Where's the 5th?
Is that a sea monster right there?
Isn't
That,
this guy?
well, yeah, that's one big,
But
that
that looks
it's like Moby Dick
something
or Jonah or
devouring.
something. The whale, yeah.
Looks like with lots of tentacles
Mhm.
taking the ship down.
Yeah, not to devour the whole thing. How many do we have here?
This looks to be a two-headed monster.
That one's the freakiest one.
That's the freakiest one?
Yeah. Its legs and its eyes and its mouth.
You like it? You wouldn't want to step out on the beach like Joe doesn't. So what do we got? 2, 3, 4, 5, 6,
10.
7, 8, 9, 10. Any resemblance to some gefilte fish drawings I've been doing for a fun series is purely coincidental. Some of them look like these characters. So that's Klaus Helmut Goldschmidt in both drawings. There's the children that are in the two of the photos there. So I'm going to write the Holocaust Museum and ask them. I'll send them the photos I used. What happened to these kids? What happened to her? And what happened to her? Because it would be good to find out what their fate was, if they survived or if not. So, yes.
Well, I really like the symbolism of the sea monster for your piece here, because it's like to me it's like it's the unknown. You're out, for example, you're out in the ocean. This was a boat out in the ocean. Monster comes from deep down, and you don't know how deep it is or what it is. So there's an unknown fear there. And of course, a monster is going to eat you up. I mean, that's what monsters do. And they come out all of a sudden. They don't like stay up for a long time. Usually, they go right for their prey.
Right.
So it would be very, very scary thing to have a sea monster.
Sure. I personally prefer benevolent sea monsters when I can. I rewatched Finding Nemo a couple of months ago just to kind of psych myself up for the sea monsters in the latest mosaic drawing combo I just completed. And I also watched Jaws about a year ago, which is interesting. I hadn't rewatched it in decades, and it's actually really, really well done in terms of Spielberg, and I think it was Spielberg, and the cinematography and the special effects are just incredible. Now that's really scary, that movie. That's why millions of people didn't want to go to the beach after that.
Your intent here, I mean, we're looking at this from a historical standpoint
Right.
of 2018, and
Yeah.
we know that these individuals, these human beings, were subject to a heinous regime.
Right.
And so these creatures could not be perceived, at least from my perspective, as being at all benevolent.
Right, yeah.
They are
Right.
symbolic of
Yeah.
the atrocity.
Right. This may seem incongruous, though, but it's happened in the number of Holocaust artworks I've done over the years where I've added like humorous imagery as a means, possibly as a means for me to be able to get through the trauma of what otherwise is just unbelievably depressing material to work and draw from all the time. Manny? Holy Toledo. Bienvenido, welcome. That was a long bike ride from California.
I think the sea monster with the big teeth and jaws make me think of how marginalized groups, you know, in this case, Jews in particular, have, you know, everything taken from them. We know how, you know, how many people were robbed, you know, art and money and just everything. And it's like they're human beings whose animality is just totally out of control. You know, they justify their greed by, you know, going after this group that, hey, we're gonna get some anyway. Let's just eat them up.
Did you say animality, like their animalness, or animal?
Yeah, well, I mean, a sea monster is not, we presume, is not a human being, and yet to me, this represents those supposedly human beings that took so much from so many people.
So
over
you're
so
saying
much-
then that
so many centuries.
are you saying then that the sea monsters are kind of like a metaphor for the people who
Yeah.
prey on other people and
Yeah.
persecute, murder them, and so on?
Well, there's an interesting, like this one, it looks like it's gobbling up another one, and so, like,
Whoa.
they're preying upon each other, in
Uh-huh.
a sense.
Just like what people do. Also, thank you, everybody, for the insight and responses and thoughtful and so on. Thank you. You could trim that off.
Do you find in the work that you do, because I've seen your other work,